Hello there, good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Lincoln City's pre-match show Matchday Live. The Imps, of course, looking to bounce back from that disappointing defeat on Tuesday night against Gillingham in League One. A massive, massive game coming up for you this afternoon, isn't it? The Stadium of Light. We'll be speaking to a Sunderland fan later on in the show. We'll also be speaking to former Imps goalkeeper and boyhood Mackem as well, David Preece, and Soccer Saturday, Sky Sports Soccer Saturday reporter Russ Taylor. So do join us for all that and get your questions in for all of those guests as well, and I'll do my best to read those out throughout the course of the show. Let's bring on our main guest, though, is the one and only Gary Hutchinson. Gary, lovely to see you as ever. A difficult week, wasn't it? But no time to dwell, I guess.
No, I suppose that's the only positive with the Tuesday, Saturday, is there isn't too much time to dwell. I'll be honest, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday felt like plenty of time for me because it wasn't a good week for the Imps. But sometimes you have to stand back and have a look at the wider picture. We're still fourth in the League One table. There's still everything to play for with however many games, like 11 games to go, 12 games to go. So, bring it on.
I don't know if Richard Godson's been looking at my notes or not, because my next question to you, Gary, was, is today a free hit? Knowing what we know, or certainly what we've heard from Michael with regards to the injuries, the form that Sunderland are in. Of course, they've won 7 out of their last 8 League One games as well. Richard's question there. Good afternoon, Sam and Gary. Free hit today, would you say, given the relatively low expectations for a result? Certainly from Richard's point of view, I guess.
Yeah, potentially. I think away at the Stadium of Light, away at Sunderland in League One is a free hit for anybody. If you go there and get a result, you've done well, because it is the biggest game any team will play this season. They're a Premier League side down on their luck. So it's a free hit in that respect. I think if you adjust expectation, it's a free hit as well. So, 6 weeks ago, I think Lincoln fans were looking at the top 2 and really thinking that's where we're going to be. We're challenging for automatic promotion. I think those beliefs and those hopes have been tempered a little over recent weeks. Lots of fans think we're going into today's game and we're going to struggle with the injuries that we've got. So certainly in that respect, it's a free hit. But let's face it, we're still fourth. It's fourth versus third. We're competitive. I don't think that it's as much of a gimme as people are making out, if I'm honest.
Optimism is what we like, Gary, no doubt about that. Let's talk about the injuries then. Big blow, isn't it, that Tom Hopper looks to be out for the course of the season, first of all?
Yeah, I would imagine Michael looks at his squad and wonders how on earth he's not been able to play what is arguably his best 11, because I would wager his very best 11 of players that we have right now have never all been on the field at the same time, which is a real shame. So losing Tom's a blow. He's a workhorse up front. I think it will mean a little bit of a rethink in the way that we attack against some of these bigger sides. You could argue that the likes of Tom probably come into their own when we play Wigan and teams like that, where it really is a war at the back, against big bruising defenders. And you would hope that maybe against the likes of Sunderland, it might be a little bit more of an open game, more of a possession-based game. So lots and lots of pressure on Callum Morton. Let's face it, when he was coming back, we were heaping the pressure on him anyway. And as things work out, he's now going to be spearheading our attack for the remaining games.
We'll talk about Callum Morton later on the show as well, Gary. From attack to defence then, Adam Jackson, Lewis Montsma doubts. That would be a huge blow to lose both of them at this stage, wouldn't it?
It would. I'll be honest, I'd be hugely surprised if they're both missing, given last night's under-18s game, which I know we're going to speak about, but Sean Rowan played. If both of those players were definitely out, I believe Michael would have called Sean Rowan and potentially Hayden Cann up to the first team to cover. So I would believe that one of them will probably play at the very least. But even so, if they are struggling, they're coming up against one of the best strikers, I think, in the division, aren't they, in Charlie White, certainly one of the most prolific. But Charlie White struggled for a couple of years. He hasn't always been prolific while he's at Sunderland. Form is only ever temporary as well. So, to answer Ben's question, I can probably see Ioma coming in to partner one of Montsma or Jackson, depending on who's fittest, with Poole and Bramall at the wide fullback positions. I think Teo Edun probably in the midfield.
Interesting stuff, Gary. Let's take a look at the League One table then, because for all that we've talked about Sunderland and Sunderland's form, a win today would see the Imps go ahead of the Black Cats in third. I know that they've got a game in hand, but at this stage, one of the reoccurring themes is far better to have points on the board than games in hand.
Yeah, 100%. I said that when we had we'd played more games than Hull earlier in the season, and Hull we had games in hand of earlier in this month, and obviously we haven't made the most of that. So look, a result today, a win today, and that would get us back on track for arguably an automatic promotion push, but almost certainly an upper playoff push, which I think is what Lincoln City fans would be absolutely delighted with if we did finish in the top 6. In reality, that with perspective. But there are a lot of teams going down, I think, as far as 13th, who are vying for a playoff place. I seem to think the team in 13th, possibly Accrington, are on 50 points. I think it's 4 or 5 points separate a huge amount of clubs. So the next couple of weeks are going to be crucial. What we have to do, yes, we're out of form. I understand that. But what we have to do is pick up points. We have to make sure that if we do get beat in one game and then you expect it the next game, you go and get a point here, snatch a win there, because the games are running out for the teams that need to catch up. And I think it's a good time of the season to have a dip if you're going to have one.
Gary, it's a really interesting point you make there about the chasing pack in terms of the playoffs. If we can bring the League One table back in, because, I mean, we've got the top 8 there, but, you mentioned it yourself that going down almost to Accrington in 13th place, you're on 50 points. Anyone could get in the playoffs at this stage, I guess. Do you see any surprise packages sneaking into the fold?
Pains me to say Gillingham. I think they're effective at what they do. I think they're tucked in on 53 points. They're on a very, very good run of form, and they've got Doncaster today. Blackpool, I've been tipping Blackpool all season. They've got another tough game today as well. I think they're at Oxford, and lose that, and maybe that would end their playoff hopes to a certain degree. Oxford and Ipswich, both in good form, both threatening. And, our friends, our former manager has just gone in at Portsmouth. They play Ipswich as we speak. And again, a result there. They're back knocking on the door as well. So in actual fact, it's quite nice that we've got that kind of, 6-7 point cushion between us and the team who are in 7th, because we desperately need to make sure we keep that gap. And obviously there, thanks Dad, helping out, telling us that Ipswich are now 1-0 up. So, they're looking very dangerous. I think a win for them today, and Portsmouth might find it difficult.
Yeah, good to see Pete Hutchinson watching as ever. Great to have Pete's thoughts and Pete's updates as well. We always look back at the previous game on Matchday Live, so we're not going to do it this afternoon. Let's see what happened when the Imps took on Gillingham then. And Gary, it was just another one of those days, wasn't it? That it's just happening at the moment to an extent, isn't it? It's just how it is. But we take it and we learn from it.
Yeah, we do. Look, I always try and find bright spots in negative patches and vice versa. Find it quite hard to find a positive at all to take away from Tuesday night. Our defending was very basic at times. We missed key headers, and you can't do that against a team whose kind of sole purpose is to get high balls in and then get in and around the area. There's a missed header in the lead up to that goal. And I think also there's Lewis Monsma there who might have wanted to get a block in. And it's tough, I think, because if your confidence takes a knock early doors, 10 minutes in, you're 1-0 down. Specifically, this Lincoln side who have gone 1-0 down on so many occasions. It's just hard to get back in. And when you get a Gillingham side also that lock the door as they did, they got banks of players behind the ball. We were just restricted to long shots. And it could have been worse, but for the heroics of Alex Palmer.
It just happens, doesn't it? I think I mentioned it to you last week that teams are coming to the LNER and they know now that they are facing, one of the best sides in the division in terms of footballing style, the amount of traction that the Imps have gained so far this season from a media perspective as well. It's almost as if every team coming to the stadium are buoyed by the fact that they're playing one of the better teams. Yeah,
they are. I also think certain styles are more effective against us than others. So I think when you look at somebody like Northampton, I know we beat them 2-1, but very kind of direct, quite strong, quite physical. This game was very strong, quite physical. But teams coming here are playing a Lincoln City side that are weakened. Let's not forget that. Let's not forget that this game was Liam Bridcut's first back in. It was George Grant is our leading scorer. He's missing. Our leading scorer from open play, Anthony Scully's been kind of off form. We're at a low. And I think teams are coming and sensing that and taking more from games than they should do, certainly since Christmas, even with Liam Bridcut having been out as well. So I don't want to be too negative about Tuesday night. It was very, very hard in the hours afterwards. Very, very hard indeed. But I actually think we played some decent-ish football in front of their area. We just couldn't penetrate, and we switched off at the back on 2 silly occasions. Cost us 3 points.
From an attacking point of view then, Gary, how do you expect the Imps to line up this afternoon? Anthony Scully knocking on the door, played pretty well, didn't he, in the EFL Trophy semi-final away at Sunderland a few weeks ago. Is he in with a shout of starting this afternoon?
Yeah, possibly. It's hard with Anthony Scully because I still can't pigeonhole him to a position. I think when you play Johnson and Rogers, we've got a little bit more natural width. I think Harry Anderson, is a winger. Theo Archibald, he's a winger. Remy Howarth, he's going to play through the centre. With Scully, you can't quite pigeonhole him. Is he a winger? Not really. He comes into the channels. Does he play centrally? Not really. He's just there at times. Very effective from the bench. But I think it's hard sometimes for him from the start in games. If he gets a good start, then he's a confidence player. But I think he can drift out of games. I forgot he came on at half-time on Tuesday night. So he'll be in and around it, but I would imagine that we'll go Rogers, Morton, Johnson up top. I don't think there'll be massive changes there. I think we would have started probably with Callum Morton anyway for this game, even with Tom Hopper's injury.
Right then, there was a big game at the LNER Stadium last night. You probably know what happened in terms of the result. If you didn't, take a look at what happened when the Imps took on Watford in the fourth round of the FA Youth Cup. This is the best of the action.
So rough again. Looks to the run of Draper in behind Laval, and he's into the box, and he fires into the corner of the net. What a finish that is from Freddie Draper. First time, looped over Alfie Marriott into the far corner, and inside 9 minutes, the home side strike first. Calves. Laval. Into the feet of Hunter. Now Shaq Ford. Ford with the shots.
Oof.
Inches wide at the left-hand post.
It's a lovely strike.
Nice link up with Damani Hunter and Shaq Ford. With the latter, left-footed effort, and that wasn't far wide. This is Laval again. Now Ryan Andrews. Early ball in, is headed away by Can. Blue Everton keeps it alive for what? It comes to Kukur, it's blocked, and then it's Ford.
Yes.
Shaq Ford levels things up for Watford. Just short of the midway point of the first half. Started scholarship next year. It's Makama. Draper again! He knows where the goal is, does Freddie Draper. The somersault's back again, and Lincoln are back in front. Freddie Draper with his second of the evening.
In the semi-final, we had a very good team. We lost 1-0 at Highbury. We lost 2, I think, at the time. Leeds had Alan Smith, Woodgate, Robinson, McPhail. They had a very, very good team as well. We were.
It's Kukur. Kukur wins the ball back. Yes. Watford are level. Mistake from Alayuni, caught in possession on the edge of his own penalty area. And Thiago Kukur gets in on the act, scores his first goal for Watford's under 18s and drags them back level once again in this tie. Here's Will Hall. Too high for Hunter. Picked up by Conte. Lulo Everton. Full for him again. Swivel the hips and a shot, which is inches wide of the left-hand post. Watford have started this extra time period full of energy and on the front foot. Adeyemo's forced to save from the goalkeeper, and now Lulo Everton has gone inches wide from putting Watford in front. Just finds Bosun Laval, takes a chance, but it's Draper who looks incredibly tired.
There's that switch again you're talking about.
Now it's Adeyemo, and the referee has pointed to the penalty spot. Well, it's Toby Adeyemo trying to get in on the bouncing ball. Lincoln defender came across him, whether there was a hand in there or whether he's ruled that he's barged him off the ball. But referee Oliver McKay has pointed to the penalty spot. So Thiago Kukur then with a chance to put Watford in front here in the second period of extra time. Controversial penalty decision. Up against Sam Long. He scored once already this evening. At this end. He scores again and puts Watford in front. blasted down the middle, Troy Deeney style. He'd be proud of that one. Into the roof of the net as the goalkeeper dived to the right. You can see what it means to the Watford players. They're ahead for the first time tonight. And it's Thiago Kukar who scored twice. His penalty makes it Lincoln City 2, Watford 3. It's unlikely this is going into the penalty area. It's for Thiago Kukar to chase down towards the corner flag. Does keep the ball in, he does really well. Now it might go into the box. He squares it, here's Adiemo, and that's a fine tackle. That Billy Brooks coming from nowhere to poke it away from Tommy Adiemo. Watford have a corner.
Yeah, good endeavour there from Thiago to go and get on the ball.
The full-time whistle blows, and Watford have come from behind to win here in the 4th round of the FA Youth Cup in extra time.
Yes, some performance, and in particular from Freddie Draper. Two of the best goals. You'll see at the LNER Stadium all season, no doubt about that. And hopefully we'll be seeing plenty more of Freddie Draper in the near future. Gary, I know we try not to be too biased on this show, but I'm still trying to work out what that penalty was given for.
I'm baffled. I'm absolutely baffled. I couldn't work it out in real time. I can't work it out now. It's hard. It's really harsh on the young lads as well. I mean, that Watford side, the lad that scored 2 for them has been at Feyenoord, I think. So, you know, it's a different level. It was a really good barometer of where our academy is at, I think, at the moment. But yeah, really harsh on them.
Cornell's been in touch. He says, Gary and Sam, do you see Draper being called up to the first team this season? I mean, it would be some story, wouldn't it? But it's perhaps a season too soon.
Yeah, I mean, he's already been in the squad, hasn't he? He was on the bench for an EFL Trophy game, maybe Accrington or Shrewsbury, I seem to think. I don't think that we'll see him called up to the first team this season, but it wouldn't surprise me on that sort of form and other form as well. I mean, he scored against Preston in the last round. He's a big, powerful lad, which is always a benefit when you're a youngster if you've got the physicality. He's clearly very confident with his celebrations as well. Wouldn't surprise him if we don't see him getting a professional deal, as Sean Rowan, Hayden Cann and Sam Long did over the summer.
Confident with his celebrations, confident in his post-match interviews as well. This is what he had to say when he was speaking to BBC Radio Lincolnshire's Michael Horton after the game.
Freddie, bad luck tonight, but it's been very close for you and the players, hasn't it?
Yeah, it was very disappointing tonight. It's a shame, but I think the lads can hold their heads up high and just be proud of themselves tonight. I thought they were brilliant for the whole team. Everyone that came on, everyone that played were outstanding, even the subs and the people that weren't playing were really good tonight.
And there really wasn't much in the end. The decision from the referee, what did he tell you as players as the reason for giving the penalty?
I wasn't really near him, but I think it was just a contact on the player that went down. I think it was light. I don't know. I think he was just. I don't really know what went on there, really, to be honest.
And then you must have thought that Odekanyera had got that goal right at the end. There would have been some finish as well, but would have given you the penalties. Yeah,
it was a brilliant finish, great ball as well, and it was obviously a shame. I don't think he was offside, but it happens. This is football.
But what about yourself? I mean, I can't imagine you scored 2 better goals in a game. You've got a big smile on your face. Yeah. Talk us through the first one.
First one, I've made a sharp run. I've seen Sean. Sean's played a great ball. I've seen the keeper coming out. Instincts just gone, and I've chipped him, and it was a great feeling. But yeah, it was a great feeling.
And then the second one, nicely chested down for you.
Yeah, it was beautiful assist, and I was there, and it was just again instinct. It was good.
And both, are they sort of goals for Lincoln fans who will maybe watching or who'll see the goals? Are they good examples of the sort of goals you score?
Yeah, I'd say so. I'd say I score a lot of different variety of goals. Outside the box, inside the box, and I'm first time finishing like that. I'm also quite good at.
And what about yourself? How are you enjoying your time with Lincoln City in this youth setup, trying to force your way forward?
Yeah, I'm loving it at the moment. It's been really good since I've come here. Obviously, I've changed position and I've come in and I've flourished it, and it's been really good for me.
And that's the ambition, clearly, isn't
it?
Yeah. To move on from this level and try and get in towards the first team.
Yeah, obviously. That's what I'm aiming for, and I think that's everyone's dream, really. But yeah, I'm really putting my head down to try and do that now.
And the setup itself at Lincoln, is it? Because I know there's a big education side to it as well, isn't there, for you?
Yeah, particularly for me, I'm not great at it, but it helps me, and obviously it's a second option. But yeah, it's really good for me, and everyone helps. Like the education staff is really good there, and everything's really good, well set up here at Lincoln.
And what have you got left then in terms of games this season as a team?
We've got 2 league games against Bradford and I think Burton at home. So we'll try and just get us the 3 points, obviously, but trying to play a new style of football, which I think is just worked for us. We're keeping the ball more instead of launching the ball, but we're doing really well at the moment as a team.
Yeah, got a feeling we'll be seeing and hearing a little bit more from Freddie Draper over the next few years at the LNER Stadium. Brilliant interview with Michael Horton there, speaking after yesterday's narrow defeat in the FA Youth Cup 4th round against Watford. Delighted to say that Sky Sports reporter, Soccer Saturday reporter Russ Taylor joins us now. Russ, I mean, you've done your fair share of interviews over the time. For a young lad, he speaks pretty well, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's not bad, is he? He's well settled, and isn't it good to see the youth lads doing so well? I still no idea what that penalty was given for as well. I think harsh is beyond belief, isn't it, for that? But it's great to see so many young lads playing well, and also what a great future it is, because the more young lads you see progressing, the more parents will want to send the children into the youth setup, and it just continues to produce that next generation. So really, really good. I think they did the club proud last night.
Well, absolutely. I mean, how important is it to have a strong academy? I said you've done your fair share of post-match interviews. You've been to your fair share of training grounds over the years as well. And to have the standard of training ground that Lincoln City have now, we're seeing that the fruits of that labour, in the likes of Freddie Draper, aren't we?
Yeah, indeed. Well, one of my best friends, Ross, is young lads in the setup at Lincoln, and he had options, but he looked at Lincoln and said, "No, this is the one I want to go to because of the setup, because of the reputation it's building, and you also need it as well. You look only down the road at Peterborough and how well they've done with their youth system to bring through players. You need those players for the future to make your club sustainable long term as well. So it's really, really, really important. And as I said before, it's just good because I think Lincoln has been a club which maybe in the past hasn't had that youth system to bring through players, and we've probably suffered because of it. And now the mentality, the way Michael Appleton's saying, right, we're going to play the same system all the way through the youth teams as well to get those players in that mentality so they can come forward. It's really good. With all the injuries we've got in the first team, we're going to need those youth team players as well, aren't we?
We certainly are. Russ, what have you made of the Imps over the past few weeks then? We had you on the show a couple of months ago, didn't it? You were absolutely blown away, as we all were, with the football. It's tailed off slightly, hasn't it? But this is what happens in football.
Look, we were going to have a slump. Every team was going to have a slump. I heard Grant McCann at Hull saying that, Lincoln were the only side that hadn't had a slump. And you're going to have a bad patch, and that's happened. We've been really, really unlucky with injuries as well. To lose Bridcut, who's the trigger for the team. To lose your number 10, George Grant. Hopper's out. Joe Walsh. We've been, to be brutally honest, been decimated by injuries. And not many people are particularly confident about today. And I've been trying to think, right, everything seems like it's against us, doesn't it? Against Sunderland. You're at the form team, Charlie White scoring goals for fun. But it just might be the one where we might be the coupon buster, as they used to say. That we go there and actually cause a shock. It's so important we get that first goal, because when we score first, teams have to come onto us and then, they open up. I think it is disappointing that there's been a little bit of a slump. But come on, think about it. We're third in the league. Third in League One. It's ridiculous. I did a feature with Wigan this weekend on Soccer Saturday, and they almost went out of business. They need this owner to come through, or otherwise they will fold. They can't go into second season administration. We're third in the league. We've had a little bit of a wobble. It's going to happen. Now's the time to turn it around. What a way to turn it around today as well. And I think before, we've always played well when the pressure's off us. And I think even though we're above Sunderland in the league, I think the expectation is that they're going to win today and they'll win comfortably. But let's see if we can spring a surprise. I've said that, been really optimistic. You watch Q4-0 defeat.
Not like you to be optimistic at all, Russ, is it? Good to see the hair's getting longer as well. You're pulling it off.
Oh, yeah, indeed. I'm going for like a bad League Two footballer. I'm not up to the hairband yet, but I'm liking this. If I can carry it off, if I could look like a third-choice goalkeeper at sort of a League Two level and carry it off, wander around the ground with a bit of a strut or something, that'd be fantastic. Maybe remember the third choice keeper is always the one who gets his second lifting the trophy as well. So that's the reputation I want to be. Sort of 10-year contract, League Two, third choice keeper. That'd do me, yeah. And the hair's well on its way. I'm
thinking, get the leather jacket out, and you're the next Gareth Ainsworth. Isn't that right, Gareth?
Oh, what a legend. He's been on the show quite a bit. What a fantastic man as well. They say you shouldn't meet your heroes, but he's just a wonderful, wonderful bloke, isn't he? He's doing well. And maybe that's the example you look at as well. Last season, no one gave Wigan a chance. They got into the playoffs and did incredible things. And they had a dip in form as well, remember. They really, sort of fell away. I remember doing the game when they lost 4-0 at Peterborough. and you thought, that's it, there's no chance. So all you got to do, look, it might be a case where we might have to end up going into the playoffs, but one, you would have taken it, and two, when you get to the playoffs, we're not half bad in these, one-off games, these cup games, so to speak. So I think anyone would have bit your hand off at the start of the season for the opportunity of the playoffs. Let's be positive. Like I said, third in the league, it's not all bad, is it?
And not just third in the league as well, Russ, but the idea that, even Michael speaking a few months ago, and I think Clive Nates has said it too, that we were well ahead of schedule. So, the plan was never as such to go up this year. So if we don't, for whatever reason, it is by no means the end of the world. That's just, again, I said it before, I'll say it again, that's how football is. We're in a great shape for next season, whatever happens.
I hate to use this term because no footballers, or football manager will ever agree, but I think it's a bit of a free swing this year, because those expectations of clubs in League One who are trying to get promoted, and there's huge expectations for us. We're punching well above our weight. We are ahead of expectation. And I think that can sometimes be a bit of a, can actually work in your favour, because as I said, it's back to that pressure coming off, and the big teams and the expectations that they have, like your Sunderlands today, are a fantastic team with immense resources and a brilliant side and players. But the weight of expectations when things go wrong can pile on you, and that positive energy can turn pretty negative. Where for us, look, we are ahead of schedule, and I think at least a year ahead of schedule as well. I know maybe even two. But it's a free swing. Let's go for it. I really don't think the pressure is on us. We didn't expect to be in this point, and anything is a bonus now. And I'm remaining positive as always about things.
Gary, would you say that Russ is our most optimistic, positive fan that we've had on the show so far this season?
He's more optimistic than Cornell, and that's saying something, because on a rainy day, Cornell goes out there and collects the water with joy in his heart. No, do you know what? It's actually it's a fair point Russ makes as well. It is a free hit of a season. We are ahead of schedule. Third in League One is a joke, and like I said at the top of the show, when you stand back and take it in context, you look at the teams that are below us. Portsmouth and Ipswich are both playing today. Neither could be above us tonight. That's just phenomenal for Lincoln City. So. Yeah, quite right. We're a year or two ahead of schedule. Bring it on.
We know Ross is optimistic, but we're fourth in the league, not third in the league. So,
we'll be third in the league after tonight. Right. That's what I'm working on. That's I'm making a preemptive decision on it, and all my predictions are usually wrong. But no, I've said 4-0 to Sunderland, and we'll be third in the league as well. So work that one out.
There you go. Like it. What have you made of Sunderland so far this season, then, Russ?
Good side, really good side. Wyke is the target man, and they work off him. They get balls wide and get them into him. And the thing is, you've got to, Michael Appleton saying you've got to watch him, because as soon as those balls come in, he's in form as well, and he wins a lot of headers and scores a lot of goals off headers. And they've got momentum suddenly, and they think they've turned a corner. And now suddenly they've got a trophy in the cabinet. They're starting to believe it's their season. So, but not long ago, they were going through a bad run to form. I remember seeing them lose at home to Wigan, and sometimes they can flatter to deceive at home as well. So they are a very good side with massive resources who are banging form at the moment. And I know all that is not particularly good for a Lincoln City fan, but at some point that forms, they're going to lose a game. And the thing is, I've seen them lose games at home. It's all about that first goal. Keep White quiet is the important thing. Stop the service to him. But also, if we can get that first goal, they're going to come on to us, and it opens up for your Rodgers and your Johnsons and people like that to actually get in behind. So it's an opportunity for players to step up as well. I saw what Callum Morton did with Northampton last season. It's absolutely brilliant. It's his chance now to shine and do something. So you never know. Look, they're a really good side with massive resources, but let's see. It's all about that first goal. Stop the service into Wyke. Go and get that first goal. Let them come on to you and see what happens. We're not half a bad side, remember.
Russ, we're about 30 seconds away from today's Lincoln City team news. So, in a word, can we do it? Can we go up this season? I think I know the answer to this.
Oh, of course we can. Yeah, absolutely. Of course we can. I'm not going to say we will, because then we won't, because that's the way it works. If I say it, it won't happen, right? Stelling called me a curse the other week, so I'm going to say there's absolutely no chance of us going up this season.
So glad you said the word curse. Russ Taylor, thanks very much for your time. Really enjoyed it.
Lovely speaking to you, lads. All the best. Take care.
Cheers, Russ.
And if anyone ever needs a motivational speaker, it's at Russ Taylor Sky on Twitter for you. What have we got? We're at 2:00 now, which means one thing and one thing only. It's time for today's Lincoln City team news. Yeah, Michael Appleton making a couple of changes then to the side that lost to Gillingham on Tuesday night. Alex Palmer in goal, Regan Poole, Adam Jackson and Lewis Monsma both make it, despite the fact that they were doubts ahead of this game. Cohen Bramall's at left back. It is then Liam Bridcut, the captain, Conor McGrandles, Teo Edun's an attacking midfielder by the looks of it this afternoon. It is then Morgan Rogers, Brennan Johnson and Callum Morton up front. Long, Jones, Scully, Archibald, Howarth, Ioma and Anderson. Your starting 11 once more: Palmer, Poole, Jackson, Monsma, Bramall, Bridcut the captain, McGrandles, Edun, Rogers, Johnson and Morton. Gary Hutchinson, going to go straight to yourself. Jackson and Monsma start.
Yep, not surprised at least one of them's in, as I said from the Sean Rowan news yesterday. A little bit surprised that TJ hasn't come into the side. But then you would imagine if you've got two defenders carrying knocks, and yet they're fit to play, it's probably better to play those and have your fit defender on the bench, so that if one of them does have to come off, you've got a fit option, rather than, say, having to replace one player with a knock with another. So I can see the thinking behind that. But hopefully they can put Tuesday's horror show behind them and keep Charlie White quiet.
Poole and Bramall, the wing-backs then, Gary.
Interesting. I think McGeady obviously will be going up against Regan Poole. So I think Poole's probably a more defence-minded fullback. So hopefully we've got to stop the balls in. We didn't do that in those final 15 minutes in the AFL Trophy semi-final, and we paid the price for it. With Cohen Bramall, he's had a tough start. I mean, he was man of the match a couple of weeks ago, Ipswich, I think it was. But other than that, it's been tough for him. He went off, I think, at half-time, didn't he, on Tuesday? But, he's our player. We're going to persevere with him. Remember, Tom Pett, key player in our title-winning side, but had a torrid 6 months prior to that. Always hard, I think, if you're stepping up a level in halfway through the season. He's trying to integrate into a new team. You've been playing League Two football, so there's a decent player in there. And hopefully, if he replicates his Ipswich game this afternoon, he could cause them a lot of problems.
Liam Bridcut starting again, Gary. You get the sense with Liam, don't you, that he needs to build up a few games. He needs that momentum, because we know how good he is. But it's not fair on any player, really, is it? When he's only just coming back in, then picks up another injury, then coming back in. It's very difficult to build up that momentum.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's like match fitness, isn't it? People talk about match fitness and being kind of in the zone, and you talk then about the likes of Charlie White when he's a confident player. If you win a header in one game, you might go and win two because you've got the confidence in the next game. If you score a goal, quite often you'll see a striker then score two or then go on a run for 4 or 5 games. And that's football. So when you've come in for 60 minutes, as he did on Tuesday night with Liam, it's more about easing him in, I think. But we desperately need him back. I think Russ called him the trigger. I've called him the pivot. I'm sure he gets called all sorts of other engineering terms. But he is absolutely central to everything that we do. He's got so much experience. He's got so much class and quality. He frees up the players ahead of him. He protects the players behind him. So the sooner he does get up to 100% match fitness, the better.
Right then, from one big hitter and Russ Taylor from Sky Sports to another in David Preece, who joins us now. Delighted to say that David joins us from his car, it looks like. You're on the way to Rochdale versus Peterborough this afternoon, David.
I am, yeah. I'm going to watch the game there, so it's not a lovely plush studio for me this afternoon.
Well, I don't know what you think a plush studio is, but this is my dining room. But whether you're referring to mine or Gary Hutchinson's staying in bar, it's lovely to see you anyway. We know you're Macon born and bred, so we'll forgive you if your allegiance is a slightly more red and white from a Sunderland point of view this afternoon. How do you see the game going?
Yeah, I mean, the same as the last two games. So I was happy. I had the pleasure of being at both games this season. Obviously, the semi-final and the cup as well. And it was, tight affairs. And I think when I first came back in December, I managed to get the game at Sinsel Bank, Lincoln against Sunderland, and it was a lot tighter affair than the score suggested. I think there's two big chances, 1v1s that I had in the first half before Sunderland got the penalty. It was it sort of gave a false impression of the game, but that's the quality that Sunderland have as well. I've been very impressed with Sunderland, with Lincoln all this season. That the few times that I've seen them live, youthful, energetic, and they've got lots of promise. And I know everyone's probably a little surprised about how they've done this season, how they've fared. But when you do watch them live, when you do see them play, you can understand why they're up there.
Obviously, you at the Sunderland game, like you mentioned, difficult afternoon for Alex Palmer, wasn't it? But I know you've been to the LNER a few times. How impressed have you been with Alex? Obviously, still only 24 as well. From a goalkeeper's analytical point of view, what have you made of him?
Yeah, he's a very solid goalkeeper, you know, and we've seen in recent weeks that it's not just from stopping goals perspective. You know, he's played his part in setting up counter attacks as well, and he's been really reliable. And for somebody like you said, who's still only 24, he's still young as a goalkeeper, he seems to add a lot of calmness and as if he's an experienced player to the rest of the squad, because, like I said, it is a young side, and he's been a real plus this season. And it's been a great use of the transfer market and the loan market indeed by Mike Appleton.
Big, strong keeper as well, isn't he? You know, I mentioned it before, only 24, but he plays more like a sort of 28, 29-year-old.
Yeah, that's the biggest impression that I got from him. You know, sort of football wise, and appearance wise. You know, he's not the most experienced, but he acts like that. He gives off that impression, and it's so important when you do have a young side like they do, that you know you need a steady, calm influence at the back. And but having said that, you know that. I've said that they're an inexperienced side, and they do have young players, but they don't play like a team that's inexperienced, and I like that about them.
How about you yourself then, David? Obviously, a former Imp, as we mentioned, and you're living in the city at the moment. You've just come back from Östersund.
Yeah, 2 years in Sweden. Just cut short my contract by a year, still a year left to run on there. And it's been a tough situation, especially for my family back here. You know, I've got family in Lincoln here. I've got a daughter up in Newcastle. And the first year I was out there, it was a lot easier to come back, or you know, much easier to get flights back to and from Sweden. But yeah, this whole COVID situation just blown that out of the water. And it's, like I said, it's been a tough time for my family back here. And I just... I think that it was more worth me being back here in England and being able to take care of them than being in Sweden, you know. So a lot of us do, you know, there's been a big guilt about being in Sweden, where there haven't been so many measures. They still had a lot of sort of the social distancing measures, but certainly no lockdowns. And yeah, it's... feel a little bit guilty when I'm going into coffee shops and going out for something to eat when things are so strict and so in the way they are here. So it's yeah, it's just good to be back with the family and yeah, hopefully continue my coaching career back home here.
Yeah, what about your time at the Imps then, David? Obviously, you played a huge part in Paul Farman's Lincoln City career as well. I know he's sort of forever grateful and thankful for the advice and support that you gave him, which leveraged him really to be a Lincoln City legend.
Yeah, and I'm so pleased with Paul that he's gone on to have a big influence at the two clubs that he's played at, you know, at Stevenage and now at Carlisle. I know they've dropped off for the last few weeks, but they had a great start of the season. He was a big part of that. But to be honest, Farman's played a big part in my development as a coach as well. And I think you're lucky sometimes when you get emotionally invested in a person, and you can see the way that they develop, and a lot of the credits, the way that he's developed, not just as a goalkeeper but as a person, is down to Paul. He always had a fantastic work ethic and a great attitude, and you know, he was always going to make it into league football. And I'm just so pleased that he's doing that and getting the credit he deserves now.
Absolutely. And Rochdale, Peterborough for yourself this afternoon then. Can Rochdale get anything against Posh?
Well, do you know what? I mean, you saw the game last week against Lincoln. The position in the table sort of belies the way that they play. You know, I've seen quite a lot of them. I saw them play against Sunderland the other week as well. And I think that... you know, those games that they went where they weren't scoring goals, they were creating a lot of chances and just weren't putting them away. And the performance deserve more points from the games that they've got. So yeah, I'm hoping that Rochdale can do both Lincoln and Sunderland a favour this afternoon and make sure they can take points off them.
Well, David, we'll let you get off. I don't know. Are you at Scotland now? Have you arrived? I presume you have.
I'm not too far away, yeah. So I've just had a pull over, so it's yeah. I'm not too far away.
Well, hopefully you can get a nice pre-match pie and a coffee in yourself as well. Much appreciated, David. Great to see you.
Cheers, Sam. Thanks very much.
Lovely to get the thoughts of David Preece ahead of Rochdale Peterborough for him this afternoon. And I'll bring Gary Hutchinson back into the fold then. Interesting, wasn't it, to hear what David had to say there about Paul Farman and how he's, managed to improve his career.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, they were very good points about Paul Farman's personality. He's a personal favourite of mine. You saw his work ethic, you saw his desire to succeed. Whenever I used to speak to him when he was in the National League, he said his dream was just to be a Football League player. It's all he ever wanted to do. So I too am delighted to see how he's done. More so this season, because he's proven people wrong, actually. When we came into the Football League, there was talk of Paul Farman's not a top League Two goalkeeper. Well, actually, he's proven that he is a top League Two goalkeeper, and I still think there's more to come from him. He's not old in goalkeeper terms. So I'm delighted how Farm's career has gone.
Let's bring the Lincoln City starting 11 back in then. If you're only just joining us, Michael Appleton making a couple of changes to the side. They lost to Gillingham on Tuesday. Palmer, Poole, Jackson, Monsmer, Bramall, Bridcut, McGrandles, Edun, Rogers, Johnson, and Morton as well. Let's talk about Teo Edun then, because it looks, doesn't it, looking at that starting 11, that Teo's actually playing in an attacking central midfield role, which we haven't seen him do very often so far this season. But he did it for the last sort of 20 minutes or so, didn't he, the other night? And actually, he looked quite effective.
He did. I'm a big fan of Teo Edun. I like the attributes he has. He's got quick feet. He's good on the ball. He can pick out a pass. He can put in a challenge. He's been really good at left back for us, but it's not his preferred position. I think when he plays as the holding midfielder, the sole holding midfielder, I think that there can be a little bit of an onus on him probably to do a little bit too much of the dirty work. I don't want to say that he can't do that, but he doesn't offer the same protection as Liam Bridcut or George Grant. I think when you put Teo Edun alongside another midfielder in that kind of double attacking midfielder role, that's what I see his natural position to be. He can get on the ball, he can affect it with a pass. If he needs to go backwards, if he needs to track back, he's got those attributes, but he's not the last line of defence in front of the defence, if you see what I mean. I think this is the first time this season that we will see Teo Edun in what I believe to be his natural position, if we are going to get anything from today's game. And that's a huge, huge if. But if we are, Teo Edun playing in the number 8 role might just be the way that we get it.
Got live pictures or recent pictures from the Stadium of Light to show you here, I believe. Yeah, here is the Stadium of Light. View from the press box. It's a long old way down, isn't it, Gary?
Yes, it is. Yeah, I suffer a little bit of vertigo at times. I don't think I'd be too comfortable sat in there at all. So, look, imagine that being full. That they're the sort of games that footballers want to play, and it will pain some of those young players of ours that they have to run out in front of an empty Stadium of Light. It was a little bit of a problem for Sunderland as well, wasn't it, earlier in the season? Their home form was very, very poor. I know they've picked up recently, but I would imagine it's tough playing in front of such big empty stands. But yeah, what a stadium. Best in League One by like a country mile.
Second best, of course. Right, let's hear from the manager then, Michael Appleton. This is what he had to say speaking in his pre-match press conference.
Absolutely. That was the message yesterday, I can assure you. They're obviously a good side. They've got a lot of experienced players in the team. Very pragmatic how they approach it. Obviously, they've got the excellence of Charlie Wyke up top in terms of bringing people into play, and obviously very dangerous when the ball's in wide areas. But we feel we've got the game to win the game. But ultimately we have to defend, and moments in games have to be a little bit better than they were the other night.
As you mentioned White, because I've watched a lot of Sunderland games of late, and as you said, pragmatism, maybe a degree of simplicity about the football. It's get a ball from out wide into him, and he causes problems. So easy for me to say, and maybe harder to deal with at times.
It is difficult because if you look at the semi-final, there was probably maybe sort of 3 occasions where your heart was in your mouth a little bit when the ball came in from wide areas, and 2 out of the 3 occasions, I thought the players defended it brilliantly between Adam and Lewis. They dealt with it really, really well. And then that one lapse in concentration, switching off, Charlie had the ability to sort of check and then make another run and free himself. And obviously that was the equaliser, and obviously the game went into penalties from there. So we can't afford to switch off at any point. Once that ball goes into wide areas with McGeady, Gooch, whoever it may be at the time, Jones, although Jones is injured now, but we just have to make sure that we deal with him and we mark him.
Yeah, Michael Appleton giving his pre-match thoughts to BBC Radio Lincolnshire's Michael Horton there. Right, the guests are flying in on this afternoon's Matchday Live. Delighted to say that Matthew Crichton from the Roker Report podcast joins us now. Matthew, lovely to see you. You must be pretty excited ahead of today's game, judging by the form that your team are in at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely buzzing. We're on a great run, and we're not conceding goals. We've got informed Charlie Wyke. We've got Edun McGeady playing some of his best football. Sunderland are a joy to watch at the minute.
What about today's starting 11 then, Matthew? I'll be honest, I've not had a chance to see it. Here it is. Any surprises? It looks, doesn't it, that Luke O'Nien is playing as a centre back for you at the moment. Certainly a versatile player. Is he playing at centre back this afternoon? And what do you make of that?
Yeah, Luke will probably continue there. It's been one of the biggest surprises, really, because we've got 4 centre halves out injured, and it seemed a bit of a crisis. But him and Sanderson have just developed this excellent partnership. And I think in League One, I think we've only conceded in 1 match in our past 8 games. We've been absolutely solid, and that's been with players playing out of position. So on paper, it looks like it may be a weakness, but he's been spot on there, to be honest.
I think Gary Hutchinson might have a question for you.
Yeah, I feel a little bit demoralised after your first 2 answers. I won't ask you anymore. I'm quite interested in Carl Winchester, somebody that I think he was possibly Cheltenham, certainly at Forest Green for a while, and didn't strike me as somebody that would step up to League One. How's he done since he's joined?
I think firstly, I was a bit concerned because obviously we thought with him coming from League Two and being, an older, experienced player, on paper it was a bit of a unfashionable, underwhelming signing. But now that he's settled, he's been playing really well. And I think it was against Portsmouth. He put one of his best games in a Sunderland shirt in. He won man of the match in our most recent victory over Accrington. He's looking like he's settling very well. He's very tidy on the ball. He moves it quick. He's great at getting in space. And it's looking like one of those signings that's actually looking like quite a good little piece of business.
Showed you pictures from the Stadium of Light earlier. We'll bring them back in again. I mean, you'd absolutely love to be there this afternoon, wouldn't you, Matthew? We would, from an away point of view as well.
Yeah, miss it completely. Obviously, it's nice that we can watch games on streams and still get to see football, but it's nothing like the same as the atmosphere when you're in the stadium, either friends or family and enjoying it. The sound, everyone's singing, the buzz. It's just not the same.
I think Gary might have another question for you.
Yeah, I'm relishing this opportunity because I've written about Sunderland quite a bit over the past as well. I've noticed like quite a few of your academy players or who are listed as youth players have had first team experience this season. I've seen Jack Diamond has come through and did very well, certainly at Sincil Bank. Ollie Younger on the bench. How important has that been during what has been, a low point historically for Sunderland? How important has it been to have kept that kind of conveyor belt? And are there any names that we should be keeping an eye out for the next year or two?
To be honest, it's been an ongoing issue at Sunderland because one of the things that's caused frustrations with the previous ownership under Donald was that they were selling a lot of our younger players for fees we didn't really feel, were anything near what these players were worth. The likes of Ballymumba, we sold 2 young players to Manchester United in the summer, one of which has been on the bench a few times. The ones we do have, they've had some players come through. Obviously, Jack Diamond started to get through. The one I would keep an eye on going forward is Dan Neil, who's on the bench today. I think he's 19. He's played some first-team games, and he looks a real player.
Dan Neil, one to look out for then. I mean, just looking at that starting 11, and it's obviously a very similar starting 11 to the one that played us a few weeks ago at the Stadium of Light. There's such experience in there, isn't there? And the likes of Edun McGeady, Callum Fagzine, Grant Ledbetter, obviously. If you do go up, obviously with those players being sort of slightly older, I guess, to put it nicely, can they cope in the Championship? Is that a fair question?
In truth, I think when you look at who we've got out of contract, I think we've got nearly half the squad whose contracts could expire. So if Sunderland were to be promoted, I think we would need to make substantial changes because you've seen this year, if you look at the likes of obviously Wickham, Rotherham and Coventry, they're all near the bottom and all struggling. So I do think if we did go up, because of the disparity between the leagues now, especially financially, I do think we would need investment and we would need to improve our starting 11.
Interesting. Matthew, just finally then, I really appreciate you joining us on today's Matchday Live. In a word, how do you see the score going?
I was more confident when I thought Lincoln's centre-backs were injured. I still think, although players like Grant are out, I am a bit worried your 2 wingers, Rodgers and Johnson. I think they could cause Max Power and McFadzean troubles. But with the way we're playing, I do think Sunderland will win. but I will go for a 2-1 scoreline.
Matthew, really appreciate you joining us on the show, and do enjoy the game.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Matthew.
That's the thoughts of Matthew Crichton from the Sunderland podcast, The Roker Report. Gary, I'll bring you back into the mix. What did you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, Sunderland are on the crest of a wave. You expected it. Obviously, I've done some reciprocal articles with Matthew over the week as well, so I understand the situation that they're in. You look at the Sunderland lineup; it is very, very strong. I was saying at the beginning of the season, they've got very good players. They've got good squad depth as well. They've got lots of experience in the likes of Leadbitter. It was interesting to hear about Carl Winchester because I haven't seen an awful lot from him. But just across the side, I mean, you picked up on Luke O'Nien as well. He's a player I really like. He's so versatile. He's got a great attitude. You see him in interviews. You see him when he does press and all that sort of thing. He's such a likeable chap, but he's adapted really, really well. But look, we can wax lyrical about Sunderland all we want because they're doing so very well. But we are still fourth in the table. We are still in this promotion chase. We do have players that can hurt, and sometimes you may lose sight of that. You come off the back of a 3-0 defeat against Gillingham and we think, we didn't create anything. But in actual fact, people like Matthew and other pundits will see Morgan Rogers scoring. They will see Brennan Johnson called up to Wales and they'll go, they're danger players and they can cause danger. Remember, it's kind of makeshift fullback in Max Power as well. I think he's playing on the right back and might be wrong, but he could certainly be a point that we could look to expose.
Some pictures from the stadium I like to bring you, and you might be able to see there walking out. I thought Harry Anderson was in the picture, but maybe not. Because I was actually going to ask you about Harry Anderson, Gary. I think we'll see him shortly. There he is. He's just saved me just in time. Harry Anderson back on the bench this afternoon, which is just massive, isn't it?
It is, yeah. He's got longer hair than Russ Taylor, look there, hasn't he now? I think having injured players back is massive. I think when you look at our attacking options, actually, those wide players, we're actually quite rich with good wide players. Theo Archibald can come back in. You've got Harry, Anthony Scully, the two that are playing as well. So that's probably the one area of the pitch we could really shake it up. But remember, with Harry, you also have the potential for playing right back or certainly an attacking wing back. And I did wonder before the centre half started dropping like flies if Michael might think, actually, let's go 3-5-2 and just kind of go for broke in these final stages, play maybe young Sean Rowan. And if you went in that position, that kind of setup with, let's say, Sean Rowan, Lewis Monsman, Adam Jackson, Harry Anderson would then be perfect for that right wing back role. So it's great getting bodies back. I'll get a lot more enthusiastic when it's either Walsh or Grant, I feel at the moment.
Gary, let's talk about some of the other League One fixtures then. Pompey Ipswich kicked off a while ago. It's still 1-1 in that game after around about an hour. We haven't mentioned Danny and Nicky Cowley, obviously joining Portsmouth earlier this week. What did you make of that?
I think it's a great appointment. I really do. It feels sometimes a little bit like almost cheating on Michael when we talk about Danny and Nicky, and I know that might be wrong. There's a little bit of stigma around that period of time, but I think enough time's passed. Danny and Nicky Cowley are very good football managers. It's a bit of an odd move in that they've got the 12 games, and after that it's a renewal of the contract. It's make or break for both. Because if they go in there and they're deemed to have failed, they are also deemed to have failed at Huddersfield. Whether they did or not is up to interpretation. There's a lot riding on it for them. I think they'll do very well there. I don't think Portsmouth will go up this season. I do think Danny and Nicky will be back at Sincilbank next season in the opposite dugout.
Nigel Adkins as well has gone to Charlton. So there's been a bit of a shake-up in terms of League One, really, over the past sort of 3 or 4 weeks, hasn't it? Obviously, with Paul Cook going to Ipswich as well and Lee Bowyer leaving Charlton earlier this week. Nigel Adkins to Charlton.
An interesting one. I saw quite a lot of negative reaction to that, and that really surprised me. Look, I know Nigel Adkins has been around a little bit, but he did very well keeping Hull in the Championship. And there was an air of the Mick McCarthy about that, wasn't there? Mick McCarthy kept Ipswich in the Championship. He left. They crumbled. And then people now realise, actually, Mick McCarthy did a really good job. Well, look, when Nigel Adkins left Hull, they came down. So I genuinely think that that it's a decent appointment. I think it's one for the longer term, but he's proven at this level. He's taken Southampton from here to the Premier League, and it wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't put Charlton in and around the promotion spots by next season. Again, I think it's a little bit too early for them this season.
Oxford versus Blackpool is a game that you picked out when we were having a chat before the show, Gary. Why?
Well, I think eventually you've got 13 teams that are challenging for the playoffs. We're at the business end of the season. We're going to be in single digits soon for some teams in terms of games remaining. Teams have got to start dropping out of contention. Blackpool are knocking on the door Oxford are knocking on the door. That is a huge game for both teams. It really is. If Blackpool don't win that, the 6 points between them and Oxford, that's very, very tough to make up over 10 games when the teams above you are still picking up points. So it could end Blackpool's involvement effectively, if not mathematically, in the playoff race. I think that's the game of the afternoon. Aside, obviously, from Lincoln and Sunderland, which is without saying, but it's big for Lincoln because we've got to look at those teams getting knocked out of the playoff picture as one less for us to worry about.
I know you're loathed at the moment to talk about Gillingham, but I'm going to ask you about Doncaster versus Gillingham. Obviously, Gillingham banging form, as we know, but Doncaster, one of the playoff rivals, certainly.
Yeah, and the same again. This is why I've picked this fixture, because both of those teams want the playoffs. They're both in very in decent form. Gillingham, I think, are on 53 points. I might be wrong there. They're certainly in between 50 and 53. Doncaster are in the playoffs. They're kind of challenging us as well. And again, we need to see that gap between us and the teams chasing us not keep getting smaller. So if we were to go, for instance, to Sunderland and get a point today, you're going to want to look at Doncaster and see them only picking up a point, Gillingham only picking up a point. Maintaining status quo is fine. If the season ends now and we finish fourth, that's actually a great achievement. I've kind of almost made my peace with the fact we're outsiders for automatic promotion. Doncaster and potentially Gillingham, it pains me to say, are rivals for the playoffs. So again, that's a huge, huge game for us.
Right then, let's get the pre-match thoughts from one of the Imps defenders. This is what Regan Poole had to say.
Yeah, of course. Obviously we've played them since I've been here, but obviously I was tied in the cup, so I didn't get to play in that game. But it was a 1-1 draw and a really tight, close-hand game. So I think if it's a time to turn our form around at the moment, this is the game to do it. And as I said, the belief in the camp's still there. They're a good team. They have, they're always in and about for the last couple of years, but this season they're doing better than they normally would do. There's a lot of expectation on the club. They've got a good run going, and as I said, everyone hits a bump in the road. They had theirs, middle part of the season. We're having it ours now. So as soon as we get over our bump in the road, then I think if we get a good result tomorrow, then we can soon put a run together.
Right, I'm back. I don't know, paused the mind. Sorry about that. What about the stadium as well? I mean, it's a huge stadium with like 50-odd thousand seats in there. In this really weird year that we're all going through, are they the stranger games in a way? When you're in a stadium, I'm trying to think of some of the smaller ones like Accrington or something, where it's a relatively small stadium. Maybe it's not such a big shock, but when you've got 50,000 seats around you, it must be pretty weird to be playing a game of football.
Yeah, of course. I suppose most of us are quite used to it now. It's been going on for over a year. There haven't been fans in stadiums for quite a long time now, so it's kind of quite normal now. So, but it is a bit weird. Obviously, the bigger the stadium, the weirder it is. Because I've played there a couple of times and it's been quite a few fans there. So I'm used to playing there with fans. It's going to be different for sure. But obviously, the lads played there a couple of weeks ago in the cup, and there was no fans there. So. Hopefully we can, I think, use that to advantage. It's always tougher when there's a lot more fans in the stadium. If they start getting on top or whatever, the fans get behind them, they get a little bit more momentum. So, I think hopefully we can use that to our advantage. As I said, the belief in the camp's still great. Nothing changes on our front. Our aim's still the same. And as soon as we get our win, I think we'll start building confidence and be back to our normal selves.
Yeah, Gary speaks so well, doesn't he, Regan? We really do have a great abundance this season of lads that not only can play really well, but can speak to the media really well as well.
We do. He speaks very quickly. If I was transcribing that, I think I might have to slow it down a little bit. We do. Yeah, we recruit decent people. We recruit good people. And, the players that we've got, you don't get any that come on and are all, sniffing and all that sort of thing. And no disrespect to players that do, but I think we've got some intelligent men and some intelligent footballers. I think you have to have a basic degree of that intelligence now. Football comes naturally, but some of the tactics and the kind of conditioning and science around it are very in-depth as well. So, footballers, I think, generally are probably getting much better, certainly with the way they react with the media as well. You have to be, don't you? Because you say the wrong thing in a media interview and it's on the internet 5 seconds later. There's no grace. There's no kind of, stopping the journalist putting it out there. So, and don't forget, Regan Poole came through the youth setup at Man United. And I think these young players, correct me if I'm wrong, Sam, you'll know, but probably get some sort of media training as part of their upbringing. So, I like Regan Poole. I think there's a lot more to come from him from for the club.
Just about out of time. Race through today's show, haven't we, Gary? How do you see the game going this afternoon? And I know you've been very optimistic this afternoon.
Yeah, I'm not, unfortunately. I think we'll get beat. Really sorry if that does come off. I've tried a little bit of reverse psychology and putting money on it so that if we then win, I'll be delighted to lose money. But I think unfortunately we'll get beat today. And dare I say, I think it might be 2 or 3 to 0.
Well, this is football and anything can happen. Gary, really appreciate your time on today's Matchday Live. Myself and Gary Hutchinson will be back on Friday evening when the Imps travel to Oxford United. Before then, you can get your match pass this afternoon by going to www.weareimps.com/ifollow. Fingers crossed the Imps can get something at the Stadium of Light and get that promotion party back on track. Bye for now.